Vice President Pence arriving in South Korea for the Winter Olympics as Kim Jong-un was watching over a military parade attended by thousands of supporters. Pence sounding the alarm about North Korea's record on human rights.
For decades, the cruel dictatorship in North Korea has subjected its people to life in what President Trump rightly called a prison state. As the president observed in his remarks to the South Korean National Assembly last October, in his words, an estimated 100,000 North Koreans suffer in gulags, toiling in forced labor, enduring torture, starvation, rape, and murder on a constant basis.
Michael Malice is the author of Dear Reader, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong-il. So how do you think Vice President Pence's trip is going so far? To me, he has been solid and steady, and he is not sugarcoating anything.
I could not be more pleased, because so much of the focus about North Korea is about their aggressiveness and their military, when the focus should be on these people who have been slaves for 70 years now, who live in constant terror and have no concept of safety or human rights. And that's exactly what the international community should be focusing on.
How do you think North Korea has played its cards so far when it comes to the Olympics?
I think they are doing a nice charm offensive. They're trying to, they do this every year. They do hawk and dove. Like one year we're going to nuke Guam, and then it's like, hey, we're athletes just like everyone else. We're part of the international community. They vacillate, and this has been a cycle that's been going on for many, many years. But now they're running a little bit scared because so many other countries have been publicly turning their backs on the North Korean dictatorship.
You have thoughts about him sending his sister to the South, and tell me a little bit about her and why this is significant.
Because under Kim Jong-il, who was Kim Jong-un's father, and Kim Il-sung, they weren't regarded as human beings. You couldn't talk about the family members. They were kind of these entities like Uncle Sam who were behind the country. So to have him with his wife out and his sister and acknowledge that these are members of the family, it wasn't even known how many children Kim Jong-il had until he died. So this is a very recent phenomenon, and it's a change from regarding the leader as a supernatural being to he's just a guy. And that's a very big response to how he's being treated internationally.
And is that because Kim Jong-un recognizes that he has to play the game differently?
It's also because so much information is coming in from the outside world. So it's harder and harder for North Koreans to believe that the great leader Kim Il-sung could literally walk on water and turn wood into bullets.
Right, so that's another way that we could influence is getting information.
Absolutely, and once you realize that everything you've been taught since you were a kid is a lie, it becomes harder and harder for the typical North Korean to believe that this regime has your back, especially when they're not feeding you.
Oh, yeah, so more of that, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me about the feelings about reunification. I understand that some people in South Korea, especially younger people, and I think we have a poll here. This is the Korea Institute of National Unification via the New York Times, saying that 21% of those under 30 are for reunification and 47% opposed. This kind of reminds me of the debate with Cuba and younger Cuban Americans sort of saying to their parents, come on, do we have to spend this much time thinking about it?
Right. There's an enormous amount of contempt that South Koreans have for North Koreans. When refugees get to the South, they have to work very hard to lose their accents. It's a very status-oriented society. So they're looked at basically as the equivalent of hillbillies, and it's brazen disrespect, brazen prejudice.
Wow.
So there's a big reason why they wouldn't want to reunify with the rural, poverty-stricken nation to the north, who they regard as kooks who worship Kim Jong-un.
Now, so the Prime Minister of South Korea, the President of South Korea, is going to have a meeting with, we had one with Pence yesterday.
Right.
Going to have lunch with the sister.
Right.
Is that correct? I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
This is a huge deal. Usually Kim Jong-il boasted that he has all these world leaders come to Pyongyang kissing his ring, including President Clinton back in the day. And now that they are getting on that plane and traveling outside the country, it's kind of like in Hollywood, who goes to whose table. The fact that she's going to Seoul and she's sitting at his table and kissing his ring is a sign in a sense of submission.
I've heard that there's a possibility that South Korea could ask the United States, even after the Olympics, to continue to halt joint military exercises. Good or bad idea?
I'm happy doing whatever it takes to encourage peace between the Koreas, to ratchet down the rhetoric, as long as North Korea is also ratcheting down the dictatorship and their machinations.
Well, we have about 45 seconds left, and I know that you can answer quickly.
Okay.
But you don't have to here. We have 45 seconds.
Okay.
What is the reaction in North Korea likely to be if the athletes from North Korea don't do well in the Olympics?
They'll probably be told that the athletes did very well, actually. So, and they'll be very supportive of who won. They just won't tell them the events that they lost.
And when the athletes get back to North Korea, how will they be treated?
They will be treated as heroes. I mean,
even if they don't win?
Even if they place, they're going to be treated very, very well.
All right. Well, Michael Malice, we appreciate that.
Thank you, Dana.
All right.